Hey folks, welcome back to the Leeds Gamer. Breaking news that is probably a surprise to absolutely nobody. Igor Tudor has left Tottenham Hotspur, along with a couple of other staff members from the back room there. I would imagine that it probably leaves former Brighton player Bruno Salter as the temporary coach until they decide who the next, and you would imagine, final head coach of the year would be, or season. Then again, who knows? Leeds fans have seen stranger things before now. Going back to the season where after Jesse Marsh left, we ended up having Avi Gracia and Sam Allardyce come in for about the last 12 games combined or something like that. It was relatively short stints for both. I think it might have even included Michael Scabella taking a couple of games in between either Marsh and Gracia or Gracia and Allardyce. I can't quite remember now. However, things are clearly still not right at Spurs. So it begs the question, will they still get relegated? I think there's still a chance because they are still winless in 2026 in the Premier League, and it can't just be down to the coaching staff as to why this has occurred. This run has coincided with them being managed by Thomas Frank and his staff and Igor Tudor and his staff. So it can't just be blamed on the managers, surely. The players have got to take account of themselves here. Now, yes, they've had a fair chunk of injuries, but this is a squad that has been expensively assembled over the last few years. And the biggest problem for Tottenham Hotspur is that they never replaced Harry Kane, Heung-min Son and Hugo Lloris. They didn't replace those three with equal quality. And the fact is that when those three players were in their prime at Tottenham Hotspur, they were the club's three best players. And ultimately, you lose all three of them in a relatively short space of time. And they've got themselves into this position now. So, ultimately, they gave Igor Tudor a couple of days after he tragically found out that his father had passed away, just after the Nottingham Forest match. So, everything outside of football, then obviously, anyone that gives Igor any kind of trouble, from an outside of football perspective, needs to give their heads a massive wobble. There's nothing worse than losing a family member. So, obviously condolences go out to Igor Tudor and his family at this difficult time. So for him to lose a family member and then lose his job, now let's face it, Tudor's not going to be short of money. He'll have been suitably paid as a player, and then as a manager there, ever since. But it's still it's still a negative thing to occur, isn't it? So, who knows what the future holds for Igor Tudor? Hopefully he gets a job that's going to be more suitable for him. Because there's clearly more going on at Tottenham than just certain things that Tudor did in his short time with the club. Moments where he's substituting players off and not acknowledging them, things like that. He obviously comes across as a very strict disciplinarian as a manager or a coach, and I think that this is kind of what Tottenham did need, because I think that they were getting away with bloody murder under Frank, and and someone needed to come in and tighten things up from a discipline and well, just in general from a disciplinary point of view, both on and off the pitch. You've got players like Romero and Van der Ven that are getting red cards, and they're supposed to be two of the most reliable players in the current squad. How can you rely on them when they're clearly not playing to the maximum of their potential, and they're getting silly red cards that are quite easily avoidable if they just kept their heads screwed on? So, the point of this video really is, what's the current situation for Tottenham, and is there still a chance they go down? Now, as I say, I personally think they still go down. They've forgotten how to win Premier League matches. That is a clear fact. Because the run that they're going on is bottom of the league by a country mile. You realistically have only got this fella here, Archie Gray, former Leeds United youngster, who's playing with any sort of passion or determination or grit, and just general effort. He's the only one playing with any intelligence, and he is a very intelligent player. But he's 20-year-old, for Christ's sake. You take the last match as an example. First half, I did see some of this match. First half, I thought Tottenham were probably the better team. Up until this. Igor Jesus scored in injury time in the first half. Good header, to be fair. It's a good goal. Poor defending from Tottenham, but a very good finish from the Forest striker. And then second half, Tottenham just capitulated. They were dreadful, and conceded 2 more goals, both relatively late on as well. Certainly, the final goal was the nail in the coffin. And the facts are, if Tottenham get relegated, let's just go to their squad, if this will allow me. Let's just have a look here, right? It's not up to date because Tudor's obviously gone now. But if we go in age order, who is likely to stay at Tottenham if they get relegated? Maybe Ben Davies, because he's been there in age. And his experience will be valuable in the Championship, there's no doubt about it. Paulinho wouldn't stay. Bissouma wouldn't stay. Vicario, God, he's got to be one of the worst goalkeepers in the Premier League. He's dreadful. He's absolutely dreadful. Maddison, I think, would look for another move. Richarlison would definitely go. Bentancur, don't see him staying. Solanke, he'd look to move on. Romero, God, he ain't going to stay. Danzo, he wouldn't. Colomwani wouldn't. I think Austin might. He's been there since the beginning of time. He'd probably become the number 1 choice goalkeeper. Porro, not a chance. Gallagher, forget it. Kulusevski, probably too good for Tottenham, really. I think that he kind of completed that front trio of him, Kane and Son, and looked pretty decent. So, yeah, he wouldn't stay. Kudus, I thought he looked quite bright early in the season. He won't stay. Spence, he's a troublemaker anyway, so he ain't going to play in Championship. He'll go. Van der Ven, forget it. Dragusin, I don't think Spurs fans particularly rate Dragusin. I think he would go anyway. He probably feels that he'd get a better move just going to, I don't know, Serie A or La Liga maybe. But yeah, he won't stay. Sarr, I don't know much about him, but I doubt he'd stay. Udogie, don't think he'd stay. He's quite highly rated. Kinski, difficult one because his reputation's tarnished by that 15-20 minute period that he played where he made 2 cock-ups. So he ain't going to stay. He's going to have to try and rebuild his reputation probably not. Like, he won't stay in England. I think he'll get a move abroad. He might even go back to the Czech league, just initially, just to get his confidence back. Maybe, go back to one of the better teams in the Czech league and just try and rebuild his reputation. Simmons, not a chance. Again, a young player that feels he's better than the Championship. Odobert, no, I don't think he stays. Tell, no. Bergvall looks like a talented player. Don't think he stays. Gray, I think. So you see, I think what Tottenham would do with these two, if these two said that if they went up to the hierarchy, if they got relegated at Championship, I reckon these two, possibly Sousa as well, they'd all go to board and they'd say, board would say, right, we don't want to sell you three. We see the three of you as being a big part of the club's future, right? Well, certainly these two, certainly Bergvall and Gray. And they'll say, right, we're going to loan you out to. We want you to stay. We want if you do, you don't want to play in the Championship, fine, right? But we don't want to sell you. And the fact is, Tottenham in the Championship won't get 100 million for Bergvall or 100 million for Gray, right? Just ain't going to happen. They'll be lucky to get the money that they paid for these two in the first place. So, I think that they'd probably loan them out to Premier League teams for a season. And they would just have to put all their eggs in one basket and say, right, we're going to get out of the Championship first season. And I don't think they will. Personally, I think that everything will capitulate massively. I think it's a downward spiral for Tottenham right now. But these two, Bergvall and Gray in particular, like, that's where the future is for this club if they can keep hold of them. Now, the only clubs that are likely to pay absolutely ridiculous money for them, I could count them on one hand. Real Madrid. But would these two go to Real Madrid? Probably. Maybe Bayern Munich. I mean, there's not a lot of money in Italy. But if you were going purely on size of club, Juventus. But again, the money's not there for them to pay £100 million for anybody. Or even 50 mil. Who else? PSG? Maybe? I don't know. But, I honestly think everyone from Tell upwards, apart from possibly Ben Davies, because he's been there a long time and he's getting on a bit, the rest go. The rest absolutely go. Unless they've got any players that are absolutely loyal to the club. So like when Leeds first went down, in the early 2000s, and we were able to keep Gary Kelly and Lucas Radebe. Because they stayed loyal to the club. They could have easily moved it back into the Premier League if they'd have wanted to. But they stuck by the club. Granted, by that point, they were both in the 30s. They weren't still in the prime. But they stuck by the club. They provided a little bit of experience that the club needed. I mean, the rest of the squad was revamped at that point. Maybe bar one or two. But they were the two standout players that stuck by us. And they'd been at Leeds a long time by that point anyway. I honestly don't think that this squad has got anyone, possibly bar Ben Davies. I don't think the rest of them have got the loyalty that the likes of Kelly and Radebe had. At all. And you look at how long Davies has been injured for. He's 33 years old now. Sorry, 32. Sorry, he wears shirt 33. He's 32-year-old. Probably still has a couple of years left in him from a playing point of view if he can get over this injury. But, aside from that, is there anyone in this list that's going to stay loyal? Oh, and Brandon Austin, because he came through their youth ranks, and even at the age of 27, I mean, he's hardly played any games for them. But yeah, Davies and Austin, they're the only. I genuinely think they're the only two that would stick by the club. if they got relegated. Rest of this bunch, forget the kids. Forget these kids at the bottom that have only just come through the youth ranks. Forget them. But all these that were expensively bought from Sousa upwards, I think all bar 2 leave. So it's a massive squad rebuild at that point for Tottenham, and at that point then you're kind of thinking to yourself, right, you know, the amount of money that they're going to lose is going to be a minimum of 200 million. You know, it's a massive amount of money. Yeah, they'll get some parachute payment that probably offsets some of the debt or some of the money that they're going to lose. And the general size of the club will be big enough to attract, you know, some of the best players in that division. Leeds was the same. You know, some of the players that we ended up getting were some of the best in the Championship. Hence why we went up. And the similar thing will happen with Tottenham. But if we're looking at it, you know, realistically, you have got an absolute bunch of greedy, overpaid prima donnas in this list. Like, if they go down, and obviously Leeds stay up, I wouldn't take any of them. I would literally take Archie Gray back. I would take Archie back at Leeds, because he knows the club. And obviously there's a rich Gray heritage, you know, in Leeds United. But the attitude of the rest of some of these absolutely stinks. Rotten to the core. Now, Tottenham Hotspur fans, if any of you ever watch this video, tell me if I'm overdoing this with what I'm saying. Tell me if I'm being too brutal, or if you think that my honesty is actually accurate. You know, the club got rid of Levy, who I couldn't stand anyway. I thought he was a pillock. But when you look at the whole situation, when he was there, you had the likes of Kane, Son and Lloris. Now who have you got? No one of the same quality. It doesn't matter how good some of these players are individually. Like, there are one or two that are half decent. You know, I think Danso isn't too bad. Porro, when he can be asked. Kulusevski, Kudus. You know, even Van der Ven and what's his face, Romero. They're decent players, but that doesn't matter, because they're obviously in it for themselves. You know, this is a shocking list of pillocks. You know, to be brutally honest, they are all about greed, because the club is in a position to be able to pay them stupid wages. But I just don't see anything positive about this squad. I really don't. Apart from Archie. And as I say, Bergville looks a talent. There's no doubt. You look at how versatile these two are as well. When you know, if Fotmob's to be believed, they cover a lot of positions. These two, similar size and similar transfer value as well. Apparently, even similar shirt numbers. So there you go. And obviously similar age and whatnot. But I mean, there's no doubt that, like, if they go down, and let's say for example, if the likes of Sousa, Gray and Bergville stay, you've got them three. You've got Austin, so that's 4, and possibly Davies. That's 5. You've got 5 players that would get into your first 11. So that's 2 defenders. Is that 2 defenders, 2 midfielders, and a goalkeeper? Whoa. That's a lot of squad rebuild. I mean, maybe these three come into the mix as well, these three youngsters. But if Tottenham have got any chance of getting promoted again, they're going to have to bring in some experience. Because that, those young lads ain't going to cut it. You've got to get a blend of youth and experience. Leeds got promoted because they had players of a good age and good experience. And then obviously this season, we brought in even more players that were the right kind of age, the right kind of build and physical stature. And that's why Leeds are hopefully going to be staying up. So yeah, going to leave it there, folks. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think Tottenham still go down despite Tudor leaving, or do you think that it's a foregone conclusion that West Ham will get an extra couple of points than what Tottenham do, and that Forest and Leeds will also maintain their positions above Tottenham? Let me know in the comments below. Do please give the video a like and a hype. Do please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and do hit the notification bell to make sure you don't miss any content. In the meantime, folks, have a good one. See you next time. Bye for now.